Bobby, how does this translate to your experience? You had mentioned a study, or maybe Mike mentioned it the other day, about run coaches watching people run of different abilities. Now, I've attended a lot of your seminars, and you talk about running economy and specific strategies to improve your economy. Can a good run coach, someone like yourself, can you look at a set of runners and estimate what their efficiency or economy is while running?
No, that research is pretty clear. It was kind of ironic. After our dress rehearsal, I watched a little clip on Flow Track of Galen Rupp and Mary Kane training post their first 2 record attempts. Mary Kane ran a junior record for 1,000 meters, and Galen ran a record for 2 miles. No, for 5,000 meters actually, he ran 13:01. And Salazar was, repeatedly going at Mary Kane, saying that she needs to bend her elbows and get her arms up, a little lower. She was carrying them too high, and then he was telling Galen to get his hands behind him. So clearly, working on the form. But the research is pretty clear that runners have tremendous idiosyncrasies at the highest level, and so what I'm preaching, which is almost contrary to what the swim coaches like Terry would be saying, is that in running, you're trying to restore the runner to what was their best form ever. But seeing somebody run beautifully has no connection whatsoever to their efficiency. But one thing that we do see though with runners is that if there is a deterioration from one type of running form that they have to another due to peripheral fatigue, then you'll notice decreases in efficiency, because they're starting to weaken in certain muscle groups. Certain muscle groups are starting to fail, and they lose that natural posture that they had. So in triathlon, that is accelerated due to the increased mass of the triathlete because of the propulsive requirements of the musculature on the bike and the run, and then also due to the fatiguing effects of the swim and the bike before they get to the run.
And Bobby, one thing Terry and I have talked about over the years, and you talked about restoring people's form to what works for them, is how to help people really understand the concept of tempo and rhythm, and to learn to, quote, relax while they're putting forth this great effort. And if you look at the goals of form drills in running and swimming, in swimming they're designed to streamline people and so forth, but part of the purpose of this in both is to teach people to relax while they're fatiguing, so that they don't make things go from, quote, bad to worse, and this deterioration doesn't get any worse. And one of the things that it was so striking about Michael Phelps and his 200-meter butterflies is that his stroke count did not go down. So just like a great 400-meter intermediate hurdler who can go 13 steps between hurdles for all 10 hurdles like Edwin Moses could, he was able to establish that rhythm and use his rhythm and tempo to delay fatigue and really manage the race. And that's what I think you see with really good runners as well. It's not so much what they look like, it's whether they can use tempo, rhythm, and relaxation to run fast when they're really, really tired.
Yeah, so the similarity there between a good cyclist that makes up for gaps in loss of power by achieving good torque numbers through revs and good watt numbers through revs, and a poor cyclist using a slower revolution rate, increased torque, and fatiguing that way. I think the challenge in triathlon is that the swimmer and the cyclist are used to using their musculature in a concentric form. Whereas runners, it's all about eccentricity and muscle stiffness around the knee and the ankle.
Right.
And so you'll see a poor runner trying to maintain a stride length as their strength fails and losing their stride rate, whereas good runners would reduce their stride length and maintain their rhythm, which comes right back to what you started with, which is it's much more of a dance and an automatic process than it is an effort process.
Well, and one of the things Bobby, Terry, and I have talked about over the years is the way that interval training has become this kind of pace clock syndrome, or I used to call it the Japanese watch syndrome, when personal stopwatches first became available. And if you listen to people who talked about interval training in the 1950s and 1960s, they spent a lot more time talking about specific tempos, rhythms, and the experiential aspects of it, and maybe a little less about whether we're going to run 10 times 400 meters in X with so much of a jog or so much of a rest interval, or a comparable swimming workout. So I think one of the things that people have really lost with this sort of zeal to quote work out is they've lost this focus on training rhythm and other things that become very, very helpful as people fatigue, when it's really critical to sort of manage your suffering and do well and really slow down less than the other person.
Yeah, it's a very interesting conundrum. You know, they say people humans are more adaptable than even cockroaches are, and you know the old saw that to run a sub 4-minute mile you have to be able to run 10 quarters in sub 60 seconds with a minute recovery. And I've known a lot of guys that were able to do that but weren't able to break 4 minutes for the mile, you know. And so we habituate so quickly.
I want to interrupt you guys just for a second, and I hate doing it because I love listening. But Bobby, you mentioned about the elasticity of the muscles and, you know, running being sort of like a dance. Tell us about how some of the new technology that's out there can help self-coached runners or help coaches work with their athletes. For example, you talk about the Garmin 620. What's that all about, and how does it help do what you're talking about?
Well, Seton has an example of a 620 there, so he can speak to that. But the three amazing things of the new Garmin 620 are that it is an ounce lighter than its predecessor, and research has shown that moving that watch through the course of a marathon saves you having to move 8,000 pounds with the repetitive nature of the arm swing if you get the 620 over the 610. But the two great benefits of the 620 at a very nominal price compared to the equipment that used to be able to measure that is that they measure contact time. Now, we've had the ability to measure stride rate, but contact time tells us how long the foot is on the ground, and it speaks very much to elasticity and that economy that is running, that is more of a bounce than a push. And then it also does a very good job of measuring vertical oscillation. And we know that as runners become less efficient, they tend to go higher up in the air and less forward. So their stride arc is higher as opposed to longer. And the 620 does a really good job of indicating those two variables.
And Bobby, one of the things about the bouncing is if you look at individuals who have superb running economy and have been studied biomechanically, they don't have much bounce. And there are a few specific examples. I'm thinking of Derek Clayton specifically as an individual who made a concerted effort over the years in the 1960s to learn to just sort of skim over the ground. And when Clayton was studied in 69 or 70 at Ball State, I think he had some of the best running economy that had been recorded at the time.
And the amazing thing about Clayton too is he was a very big individual. He could have been a triathlete, you know. So.
All right, I need to interrupt you guys.
With the big guy.
I need to interrupt you. I'm sorry. Seton, you've got a 620 right there in front of you. Can you show it to us and give us a little primer on how it works? It's pretty small. Tell us about it.
Well, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's as far as functionality, it's going to work if you're used to any other Garmin or watch for that matter. It's going to work very similar. The setup is pretty simple. You're going to turn it on, enter your weight, your age, date of birth, and it's use that some of that initial setup data to set up zones for you. Mm-hmm. And then it also connects to Wi-Fi, so it connects to your phone, which is cool. Huge different from the other Garmin's watches that have been on the market. So it does integrate through your phone through Garmin Connect. So I mean, those are the big highlights. I can't really show you on the screen because I don't think it's going to work too well. But
that's fine. But
yeah, that's the gist of it. And like Bobby said, I mean, this is real cutting edge technology that, quite frankly, no mortal like us could afford years ago, and now here it is for a few $100. So,
so
it comes into. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, what does it take the place of? Just so people can, I mean, I think everyone understands it's a pretty nifty gadget, but what is it taking the place of that wasn't available a few years ago? How in the past, 5 years ago, would I get the information that watch can give us now?
I think Bobby can speak more to that because I never even knew these devices existed, quite frankly, until Bobby's mentioned in several of these shows. So, he can highlight that. What you're looking at is basically your stride rate, and like I said, Bobby's a pro on that.
Okay.
The accelerometry in that watch is in the watch itself, so it doesn't require a foot pod. It actually picks up your arm swing, which is pretty amazing. So it's a much more compact device, but it still provides all the amazing benefits of the Garmin in terms of tracking speed and distance, and also mapping terrain and helping you find your way back. If you choose some hellacious course and get lost, you can find your way back. It's a 21st century device to the power of N. It's an incredible piece of equipment.
Yeah, and the other
really
big
cool
thing is I know a lot of triathletes use these watches, but there's a lot of us, me included, who I have a computer on my bike, and I don't swim with a watch. I just want to run with a watch. This is a pure running watch, and this is a GPS-enabled watch, and it's for 2014. It's pretty small. It's a quarter the size of a Garmin 910. So you don't have to look like a triathlete when you wear this thing.
You can hide it. I know a lot of triathletes would like to hide it.
You can hide it a little bit, yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Seton. I'm going to come back to you in a few minutes with some information about the Tempo Trainer.
Okay, great.